Thank you everybody for showing up today. We've got a slight change of plan on the agenda today. We've got the Colonnade as advertised, and then we're going to have Mr. Tim Gordon talking about the litter fines that have been implemented by RDC. Just before we start, there's just a few bits and pieces. There's fire escapes at the front and the back of the room. The toilets are just through here to the left. And we do have some sandwiches, cakes and drinks if anybody wants anything during the meeting. And we will have a short break after the Colonnade presentation. So without further ado, I'll introduce Councillor Connor Winter. Sorry. I was going to say something totally different then. So Councillor Connor Winter. So Connor.
Right, good morning everybody. Thank you all for attending today to discuss such, an important topic. I am a councillor, but I do not represent any council here today. The people I represent are exactly that, the people. I was democratically elected by the people, and they are who I represent and their interests, as well as all of the Colonnade business traders. I've broken my sort of speech, if you like, down into different sections, just to make it a little bit easier for everybody to follow. So I'm going to start with the background of the topic. So the background and what is the Colonnade issue exactly? So the Colonnade is a row of historic commercial units on Bexhill seafront. These units have been home for decades to small independent businesses, cafes, shops and eateries, many of which have built loyal customer bases and have contributed to the local economy for many years. The council has announced that the Colonnade will undergo significant refurbishment works. Of course, while regeneration is a positive aim in principle, the current traders have been told they must vacate their premises before the works can begin, with no guarantee of returning once the refurbishment is complete. Some councillors have claimed that it would be unlawful for the council to offer the current traders first refusal. I have sought clarification on this point, and it is important that everybody understands that there is currently no UK law prohibiting a landlord, including a local authority, from offering existing tenants the opportunity, the right to return after these refurbishment works have been completed. What may exist, and does exist, is of course a council policy, such as the Rother's policy for asset devolution. But these are internal policies, not acts of parliament. Policies can, of course, be reviewed, amended, or set aside by the council if there is political will. So that just gives you a quick, brief and short overview of what the issue with the Colonnade is. So now I'm going to go to, I think the main part is what happened on the 14th of July. At the Rother District Council full council meeting on the 14th of July 2025, councillors entered the chamber to be met with a motion submitted at the very last minute by one councillor. This motion had not been seen by the public before the meeting, and therefore the community had no opportunity to review its wording or understand its implications before it was debated. During the meeting, that motion was later amended by another councillor to include a crucial commitment, ensuring that existing Colonnade traders would be given first refusal on the refurbished units. The amendment was approved by the original proposer and seconded in the chamber. From the public gallery, many residents and traders witnessed this discussion and understood that the intention of the amended motion was clear: to support the traders, maintain the vibrancy of the Colonnade and ensure fair treatment during and after refurbishment works. However, when the public video was published and the official written record was later put online, the wording did not reflect the understanding from the debate that evening. Instead, key elements discussed in good faith, including the spirit of first refusal, appeared absent or diluted. This has raised serious questions about transparency, accuracy of the minutes, and whether the council's formal decision truly matches what was debated and agreed on the night. So that's what happened on the 14th of July. It was quite a night, I have to say. The action that's been taken since the 14th of July. So, following the full council meeting on the 14th of July, where the amended motion was understood by many in attendance to include a commitment to give existing Colonnade traders first refusal on refurbished units, events have taken a concerning turn. When the official written record of the meeting was published, the wording did not appear to reflect what was openly debated and agreed on the night. The language was altered in such a way that key protections for traders, particularly the principle of first refusal, were no longer explicit. This discrepancy has led to significant public concern over transparency and accuracy in the council's decision-making process. Traders and members of the public have asked, if what was said in the chamber is not faithfully recorded, how can decisions be trusted? In the following weeks, traders continued to face uncertainty about their future. The lack of clarity around what support the traders will be given, promises of a support package by the council for displaced traders, made both in earlier communications and in public statements, have not been followed up with concrete details. Despite being told to register with the council's letting agent, traders discovered that even as late as the 30th of July, the letting agent had not been briefed about the Colonnade project, the displacement of tenants was not discussed, or the regeneration process. There's been no clear timeline for these works. Questions remain unanswered about when refurbishment works will start, and the fact that one trader's lease does not even expire to the middle of October, and others are on a rolling monthly contract until works are formally announced. As I've mentioned, there's legal confusion over the first refusal aspect. One councillor has repeatedly claimed online that offering traders first refusal to current traders would be unlawful under UK law. This is factually incorrect. There is no UK statute or case law prohibiting a landlord from offering first refusal to tenants. The only restriction, as I said earlier, is the council's own policy. It's a local policy and not a law. And then, of course, with everything nowadays, there's a political tension. The issue has become the subject of heated political debate, with certain members using public platforms to undermine the campaign for trader protections, dismissing public support as being duped and misrepresenting the facts. Meanwhile, community backing for the Colonnade traders has grown, including over 45,000 views on one video alone. In response to these concerns, myself and 11 other councillors across the chamber in Rother District Council have met the 1/3 threshold required under Council Procedural Rule 16.1 to formally trigger the process to rescind the motion that happened on July the 14th and bring it back for a fresh, accurate debate at full council. The aim is very simple: to ensure that the decision reflects what was intended and agreed in good faith, and that the community can see transparency and fairness in action. For traders, the stakes remain high. Without a firm binding commitment for first refusal or adequate compensation, there is a real risk that the Colonnade could remain empty for years, as suggested by one councillor. So that sort of describes, the action that myself, the Colonnade traders and other councillors have taken since the 14th of July. This is the most interesting part. It's called Facing Truth in the Face of Intimidation, I've titled this part of the speech, and it describes the part about, since the 14th of July, the behaviour that I have come across and been subjected to by certain members. So in standing for the truth, I have faced a storm of accusations, insults and abuse from a small number of fellow councillors online. I have received veiled threats, calls to remain silent, and to abandon the fight for transparency and fairness. But let me be absolutely clear. I will not be intimidated. I will not be silenced, because the people of Bexhill and the traders of the Colonnade deserve more than fear or compromise. They deserve courage and they deserve honesty. Leadership is not measured by how comfortable you are or how popular you are. It is measured by the willingness to confront when things are wrong, to speak plainly and to act even when it is difficult. I stand here because the future of our town and the livelihoods of the people and the businesses at the Colonnade demand it. Let no one mistake this for weakness. No insult, no threat, and no attempt at political bullying will shake this commitment. The interests of the many outweigh the ambitions of the few. The traders who have built businesses, reputations, and lives on the seafront will not be cast aside. This fight is all of our fight, and their rights are not negotiable. We will act with clarity and with determination and with purpose. We will not let procedural confusion or partisan division cloud the simple truth. Fairness and transparency are not optional. They are the foundation of trust, the bedrock of the community, and the measure of any council that claims to serve its people. This is not a matter of politics, it's a matter of principle, and principle will not be defeated. So the legal context, I'll just go over it very briefly, as I've mentioned previously. From a legal perspective, under the Landlord and Tenant Act of 1954, tenants may have security of tenure unless specific exclusions are agreed and proper legal procedures followed. Local authorities have broad discretion in how they manage their commercial property portfolios, provided that they act lawfully and in the public interest. And there is no legislation preventing the council from negotiating or offering tenancy arrangements, including first refusal, to existing businesses after works are complete. And it's important that everybody understands that unlawful and not in current policy are two entirely different things. One is a matter of law, and one is a matter that can be changed and is by political choice. So why does the Colonnade and why does this matter to Bexhill? If our town loses the traders who have worked for years to build a customer base at the Colonnade, we risk losing part of our cultural and economic identity. Empty units on a prime seafront location would damage both our tourism offering and our local pride. This is why transparency is not just a nice idea. It is essential. Decisions about the future of our public assets should be made openly, based on facts and in full view of the residents that they affect. So in closing, the Colonnade issue is bigger than just one row of shops. It is about whether this council is willing to listen to the public, treat long-standing traders fairly, and act in a way that benefits the whole town. We have an opportunity, through the recall of the 14th of July motion, to put things right, to debate in good faith, and to make a decision that future generations will look back on with pride. Because we cannot allow procedural confusion or political division to obscure the simple truth when you have local businesses with proven success, willing to return and contributing to the local economy. That is a win-win for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Connor. Are there any questions at all from the audience? The microphones? We have got a microphone around. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I noticed you said something. It's been suggested it could take 4 years to fill the units. I mean, this is what completely throws. Sorry, we've never had all the units occupied, and yet, oh dear, we were units being unoccupied. And do we have any idea why RDC want to take that risk?
No, we don't have any idea. I think, as I said, the Colonnade is one matter, but we have a wider issue of local government reorganisation and asset devolution. I think if this happened a year ago or 2 years ago, it would be quite a straightforward solution of first refusal. But because I think RDC in 18 months, 2 years, 3 years don't know who's going to own or operate the Colonnade, they don't want to offer leases or commitments to businesses and people when they are not going to be here in 2 years' time. There are shops down there that have never been occupied since the last refurbishment, and despite works and the pressure from the current traders who have got other people that want to take those units, have pushed for those units to be rented out by Rother, and Rother have been reluctant to let them go. So they've sat there empty. So when Rother claim it's all about money, and we're doing, things, best practice for the finances, well, you're clearly not when you've had units that have sat there for decades empty.
Thank you. Any more questions at all? Gentleman in the back there.
Hi there. It's not really a statement. Rother District Council is a big commercial owner. And the idea was quite good because enabled properties to be let out and create revenue for the council. But associated with that is the need to have morality in your business dealings. And one of the ways in which morality is actually applied is by transparency. And I think the Colonnade episode just shows how that just goes out the window, appears to go out the window in Rother Council's dealings. This isn't the only issue. The Colonnade is not the only problem that exists. I've actually got a freedom of information request into Rother District Council asking how many commercial properties that they've got which haven't got EPCs in place. It's a legal requirement for a landlord to have EPC in place for the commercial properties, but that just goes out the window. They just don't do it. We seem to have got a regime which is run by officers who either don't know the law, or if they do know the law, want to ignore the law. But what is actually happening is that the people of Rother, the people of Bexhill, are just suffering. People are actually losing their livelihood and losing money, and it's really inappropriate for our local council to act in this way. I'm delighted that you've got the rescind motion coming up, because there is absolutely no doubt at all that the motion that was passed on that night included the option to give first refusal to the tenants of the client. It didn't give them any rights beyond that, it just gave them the right to have first refusal. And you have to ask why that's been refused. And it's the same on other properties or other cases locally why decisions are taken and, and quite honestly, I hate saying it, but downright lies told to people. The morality of our council should be first and foremost. It represents us as people.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'd just like to ask a quick question to Connor. You said it's going back to full council.
Yes.
What date is this going back to full council?
The September 16th. Thank you. The minutes will be questioned at September the 16th, and because we've got the numbers and it's a new motion and we've given plenty of notice, yes.
Well, thank you very much. So we've got one more speaker today, Mr. Tim Gordon, who's going to come up and talk about the littering kind of police, I suppose, at RDC and some of the issues. Do you want to take a... Yeah, well, what we'll do is we'll take a quick 10-minute break. Everyone, this is teas and coffees and bits and pieces up there, and then we'll come back with Mr. Tim Gordon. Thank you. Okay, everybody, I think we're ready to start again. On the second half of the meeting here, we're going to have any questions. Martin will come around with a microphone and he will hold it for you because it needs to be held in a certain direction today. We're having a few issues with the speakers. So any questions, just let Martin hold the microphone. So without further ado, I'll introduce Mr. Tim Gordon, and he's going to talk about RDC littering and the officers who deal with that. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's not just RDC as well. This is a nationwide issue. But let me just start off by saying that I hate littering. I absolutely hate littering, including dropping cigarette butts, etc., and everything else. But £100, And what you'll find is that many councils will have a policy, which we've already heard about from Connor, and in those policies, generally the thing is to give you an opportunity to make good, especially if you aren't aware that you've done it by accident. And the problem with littering is it's not a case of it being by accident. If a £5 note fell out of your pocket, you could be done for littering. There doesn't have to be any intent, which is rather strange. But you've now got these RDC environmental officers working for the council, and they are actually paid 75% of the fines that they collect. 70% of the fines, beg pardon. And so they're actually following people around and harassing and haranguing them, following them up the street. And part of the policy is that they're not supposed to be doing that. Now, the first time I ever heard of this accidental littering was there was a woman in Trafalgar Square, and this was in the press, and she was feeding her daughter with a pie that she'd bought, and the daughter dropped a bit of a pie that she was eating, and she thought nothing of it. And then the next thing is she didn't worry because the pigeons came up and started eating the pie. So she got a damn ticket for that. Can you believe? Got a ticket for that. Now, the idea is that RDC can then concentrate on the serious fly tipping, where you're getting all this rubbish parked down country lanes and on farmers' land and all this sort of thing, which is quite commendable. But while you've got these people chasing around after this sort of amount of money, you're going to get problems, aren't you? Now, the problem is they seem to be contracted for several years to these people, which is means they can't really get out of it, unfortunately. Now, where are we here? So this is probably why you'll see if you go onto like the BBC website and things like that, you'll see so many people, and the BBC have picked up on it, and they've consulted solicitors as well about this, not only littering but the fly tipping. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my story after I've taken if there's any sort of questions that anyone's got so far on this. And I think we've even got people in this room that have actually had experience of these people at RDC. So anyway, any questions? Not going to say your story? Well, at the motoring event.
I'm a former secretary for Bexhill 100 Motoring Club, and we put on an annual classic car show every year, which requires an event management plan of all aspects of the show and how we're going to cope with all aspects, and to make sure that the car show is a success for the people that visit it and for Rother District Council, who we paid a fee for, and submitted this event management plan and ran it to the best of our ability. And as a committee members, we used to get there at 6:30 in the morning and work right through until 5 o'clock in the evening to make sure that everything was well run, and to make sure that the pole grove was left in the same condition as it was. In fact, it was left in a better condition than when we got there. And this particular year, we had people coming in saying that they were going to be collecting rubbish on behalf of Rother District Council, and to cut a long story short, we refused to allow them to come in to this event because we admitted we had total responsibility for it all, and we made sure that we were conscientious and thorough, which is how we would represent our organisation to the public and to the Bexhill people.
But I understand they were quite persistent as well, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Mm. Apparently there's quite a few around Ravenside that people have complained about, and somebody's even mentioned that here today. Is there any other questions at all?
Is it possible to appeal?
Well, that's what I'll come on to in my next bit, if I may. So anyway, I had at my house a visit from an enforcement officer, one of these private ones from the council, and somebody had actually moved something, an item from my drive, and it was on the pavement. Now, we don't live very far from the Bexhill College, and they're good kids, don't get me wrong, but I've had vehicles outside that have had little card holders on for people to take cards, and they take them out and they've strewn them down the road and silly things like this. And I've had builders working there on the frontage, and they've taken things off the front and moved them up and down the road. In fact, one of the neighbours complained about them moving things up and down the road. But anyway, this environmental officer turned up at the door, and I've got a lodger, and he was told about this. He immediately went down to the front and moved it back 3 foot, about 1 metre, from where it was on the edge of the pavement on the corner, back onto the drive. Anyway, he then started harassing and haranguing him about this, of which I've got the video where it's on the Ring doorbell as well. He refused to give his name because he'd already had a £100 ticket himself for dropping a cigarette end. And when I'm talking about a cigarette end, he has roll-up, so, you know, you can imagine the size of his litter, can't you? So thought no more of it anyway. So next thing happens is a letter comes from this company saying basically it's a fixed penalty ticket. It's £400. £400, £340 if I pay it within 10 or 14 days. I've got the documents here if anyone wants to see them. So I wrote to them and I said, well, this is ridiculous because A, there was no intent, B, I didn't move it there, C, I didn't allow anyone else to move it there. It wasn't waste, and when it was pointed out, it was immediately moved. So you think, fair enough, wouldn't you? So anyway, so I wrote to them, and anyway, I got a reply, which I've got here, which is basically to say, we don't do any appeals process. So I thought, okay. So I then went onto the Rother site, and I looked up the documents pertaining to where they introduced this back in 2023, by the looks of it. And there was only one email address on there, head of the environmental services, whose name I'm not particularly going to mention. So I wrote to him, and I got a reply from him, which basically was a lot of nonsense. It wasn't correct legally with what he said the offence was and what was involved. It was, you have to have the intent for fly tipping. Unlike litter, you have to have the intent. So anyway, I wrote back to him and I thanked him very much for his reply, being promptly, and I sent him some links from the BBC website, which is all the people that complained, many of whom are about Rother District Council and their fly tipping and their littering, and how ferocious these guys are chasing people around, giving them fines. Now, the problem with this is that the only defence for this is to go to magistrates' court and contest it. Now, the problem is if you go to magistrates' court and the magistrate's not having a good day, or is like the head of environmental services at Rother, who doesn't actually understand the actual law that they're enforcing by the looks of it, you could end up with a magistrate just rubber stamping it, and you've then got a criminal record. So it's not like a parking ticket or anything else, or all the other scams we've had, like wheel clamping, where they're sort of civil matters. This is criminal. So you go there, you've got a criminal record. So what happens? Everyone who gets one of these tickets, almost without exertion, apart from some person here, would pay up rather than risk going to court and getting a criminal record. So it's just absolutely nonsense. So one of them on the BBC site was Frank Brown was working on a house in Bypass Road, Chilwell in Nottinghamshire. He was issued a ticket for fly tipping. He had bags of sand he was working on. They were on the side. So A, it wasn't waste, and B, it wasn't obviously intentional. And so the BBC contacted a solicitor, and the solicitor told the BBC that the notice was incorrectly issued as the building material had not been discarded and was therefore not waste. So what can one say? So I wrote to head of environmental. So I said, thanking him, as I said, for the quick reply. And I said, so what we're saying then is if you had an ornamental garden, and in that ornamental garden in the front of your house you had garden gnomes. Apart from it should be an offence, I should think, having garden gnomes. So if somebody walked past your garden, picked one of those garden gnomes and put it on the pavement, you are then guilty of fly tipping and you will get a £400 fine and or a criminal record if you don't pay it. What more can I say? I mean, it's as ludicrous as that. Absolutely bonkers. So, doesn't have to be waste. You don't have to put it there. Somebody else does it. And they still think, you know, and they're going to pursue you because what's 80%, well, 70%, isn't it? 70% with RDC, 70%. So what, they're going to get £280 for giving that ticket out. And virtually everyone's going to pay it. People are up in arms. Just have a look on the internet. Have a look on the BBC website. It's appalling. So, so there it is. So thank you very much. And I hope that's of interest. And just be careful out there because you certainly need to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ben, you've got a quick question. Yeah. Hold on, we'll get the microphone. Hold on.
What happened with your case at the end? What happened with your case in the end? Did you pay up, or did you try to fight it, or?
I certainly have not paid up. Don't intend to pay up. I will take it to magistrates' court. And if Rachel Reeves doesn't have her way and stop us being able to take it to a higher court, I will take it to a higher court if necessary. I'm not one to be intimidated. You might have seen all these private parking tickets where you go in a car park, there's no space, you go out again, you get a £100 ticket. You know, they're only an invoice. That's what you've got to remember with the private ones, not the council ones. And the other one is you get 5 minutes late and you get a ticket for that. There was going to be a change in law on those, but the government's been a bit too weak to actually put it through, and the parking companies have put a slightly better code of practice in place, but that's only a few of them. It's not all of them. You just, you know, you've got to stand your ground. You know, you mustn't be bullied by these people. It's just not on, you know, and I will stand and I will help anyone that's that gets any of these notices, whether it be for fly tipping, parking, littering, whatever, because it's just an injustice. It's just totally and utterly wrong. So yes, I will fight it, and I'll fight it, and I'll fight it. So it's as simple as that. So those private parking tickets, I've never paid one, for example, because generally people just pay up out of fear.
Well, they do, yeah, and it is a genuine concern. I'm just wondering what would happen in the case where, like, you know, it was my son's birthday recently. He's 6 years old. He got a lot of packages through the post, as you do these days, lots of stuff from Amazon. Got his name on it, addressed to him with our address. We can't fit all the cardboard in our recycle bins. We put it next to it. But what if the wind blew it away, or a fox dragged it off, or somebody else just messed around with it overnight? You know, these people are going to come after us and say that we've been fly tipping when all we've done is put our rubbish out like we've been told to. It's a ridiculous situation.
Well, that's true, but I believe you're actually guilty of fly tipping by putting it by the side of the bin. You'd think common sense would prevail and say, well, if it was a bin day, then it wouldn't apply. But I think you might find technically it's still actually fly tipping.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I also believe that is the instruction that you get from Rother District Council when you say your recycling bin can't cope with the amount of recycling you're trying to do. But
no, that's right. Yeah, that's a real problem. But you know, you just got to beware. It's just so easy to fall foul of it, and it's £400. And when you know how much they're getting of it, you can see why they're going to give it. They're not going to, you know, you might even get the council environmental officers being more lenient. But when you're paying people that sort of money, £280, you know, they're going to get from you for issuing that ticket, and almost certainly you're going to pay it, you can see what the problem is.
To add the thought to how ridiculous it all is, because it's not just litter, there's dog mess as well. And we've heard stories about these people chasing people and saying, your dog did that, you're fined, when their dog, they're quite sure their dog didn't, and there's no evidence as to which pile on the ground came from which dog, you know, so there's that going on. But most importantly in my mind is that since all this has been going on since, 2 years now, over dog mess, litter, whatever, as far as I can see, and I walk all the time, so I know what the streets are like, litter and dog mess is getting steadily worse. They're not actually achieving the aim of cleaning up the streets. So, you know, what the hell are they there for anyway? Because they're not achieving anything apart from earning some money.
Well, it's like with most things, isn't it? It's always the soft target. I mean, the problem with dog mess is that you can't DNA excretia, apparently. It doesn't, you know, so you can't attribute it. But it would cost far too much money to do that. But they're going for the soft targets. That's all they do. They go for the soft targets. I mean, I run a dog walking business, is one of mine. So I'm acutely aware. And sometimes you could get short without, you know, a bag. But, you know, what can you do? But, you know, go back and get one and come later. But you've actually committed an offence in that time by leaving it and going back 10 minutes later to get it. It's, you know, and there's no common sense, especially when you're paying people so much money to have you for it. So,
absolutely nothing is being achieved anyway because the situation's not improving.
no, we're just going for the soft targets. But I mean, this is the plan that RDC obviously had, which is quite commendable in a way, is that they could concentrate on the big stuff, and they've got people sorting out locally. But as you say, it's not working. No, it's not working at all. No, they're going after the ones where they can get the money because they're bound to, aren't they? So, yes, no, it's a sad indictment of the times, really. But
Right, you know, back again onto a question of accountability, transparency and morality, because when this was discussed before RDC made the decision to appoint the contractors, at least two councillors, and I will name them, Proshak and Bayliss, made the big point that this was not a money-making game. It was to have an environmental impact. And I think certainly for at least one of those, that is absolutely true. That was the intent.
well,
But I think we have an issue as well, because our district councillors can bring this up again in the formal processes of the running of the council, because I'm fairly certain that the motion that was passed and which then led to the contract being signed with the contractor, and it was clearly said, you know, at the very beginning, someone said we're going to have people running around just seeing anybody smoking a cigarette, and they're going to follow them until they either put the stub in their pocket or drop it and they're pounced. And the council was absolutely adamant that was not the intention, that was not the aim. Now, if that is happening, then the contractor is in breach of his contract with the council. And so it isn't just a matter of the contractor issuing the notices and collecting the money. The council has a responsibility. And as we've got at least one district councillor in the room today, I hope that they will now go forward and actually bring this up, because it is ludicrous. You know, I think the point you made that, you know, do you see any benefit from it? I haven't seen any benefit from it. And when you get this, I mean, there are just too many stories of the bit of paper blowing out of a bin and going onto a road and being done. I mean, our bin men are very, very good. I live in Battle, and when they come, they're very, very good. But I would say on average, there's one piece of litter that falls out of their truck a week when they come down. You know, maybe I ought to get the environmental services to bring their own inspectors down to get their own contractors there. It's just ludicrous. I agree with you.
well, there's quite a few remarks and questions there. But as far as the money's concerned, I mean, RDC are getting 30% by the looks of it, which I think is quite significant by the sound of it for them. But the real money's being made by the contractors, which is why they go around in the way that they do.
Figures. Everything is in the contract. It's not the contract. They haven't just given a contract to a contractor and said, right, we want you to stop littering. They have agreed a contract with all those penalties in. Therefore, it is the elected representatives who can change it. Well, and that's where our democracy is disintegrating, because all that's happening, I have no disrespect to Councillor Winter because I exclude him from this, but you know, these things come up and they sit there like donkeys just nodding as the officers come up with the most preposterous things. I mean, on a parallel situation at the moment, we're at Battle in Netherfield, we're involved with the most gross breaches of planning regulations. And what do the council do? Say, well, it's not actually appropriate or expedient to take any action, but you can have people going around doing what you're talking about. It's just crazy. And it's democracy that's failing, because all these contracts, all these decisions are actually made by the elected members, and they have the power to bring this back. This could be referred back to overview and scrutiny to see how that contract is being applied. But the only people who can do that are the elected members. So the pressure's got to go on those. And if you don't, when the unitary authority or whatever happens, good riddance to what's happening at the moment. And let's hope to God that we actually get some proper transparency and accountability back.
Oh, well, don't get me going on planning as well. I can do you another good story on that one, but it's if you go down, people are complaining that they're anywhere, these enforcement officers, where people congregate, like down at the shopping centres, like down at Glyn Gap, and they're sitting there watching. I'm surprised they haven't got binoculars in many cases, and they're waiting for people to drop their cigarette ends and other such things. So they're not actually effective on the streets here. They wouldn't generate enough money. I don't think the 30% that RDC is going to generate them a fortune, but it's obviously not actually doing the job which it was intended to, and this applies all over the country. So it's not just there, and these guys don't follow the policies it would seem that the councils lay down, and which would be detailed in their contracts, of course, as well. By any stretch of the imagination. If they do, then they've really made a mistake when they've drawn up their contracts. So there are complaints everywhere about these guys. But
an example of this is, of course, that in Battle we have the Battle bonfire procession, steeped in history, steeped in tradition, and this is what, again, elected members just fail in their duty, because mandatory, Rother District Council is responsible for street cleaning. So they then said, if you're having a bonfire parade, the organisers of the parade, who don't get a licence for the road to be closed or anything else, that's done separately, are liable for cleaning the litter up. Now, by law, Rother District Council are responsible for doing that. And if they want to stop people littering, they should put their enforcement officers down on the bonfire parade. And I think the balance of power might change a little bit then.
If you put enforcement officers at the firework displays for the Battle bonfire boys, you'll end up after a couple of years, nobody will turn up, because they'll all be getting all that litter that you're supposedly being asked to clear up. They'll be there, all these enforcement officers giving all those people tickets, and it will just
probably end up in the bonfire.
Just end up with no bonfire. Yeah. So I would keep quiet about that one if I were you. You certainly don't want them there.
Just one more quick question. You briefly mentioned your correspondence with Rother District Council, an officer at Rother District Council rather than an actual councillor themselves. Is their attitude towards this more, it's not my problem because we've handed it over to a contractor? Do you get that opinion from them, or are they trying to help in some way? Because I get the impression, and it's not just like the previous gentleman was saying, this is a problem nationally where you have different government, levels of government, who've got delegated power and responsibility for these issues, handing it over to quangos or private companies or individuals in some cases to enforce rules on their behalf. And then when you question anything about that, they just turn around and say, it's not my problem. We can't deal with this. We can't help with that because you need to go to that agency or that government agency or that NGO or whatever it is that's looking after that specific point in law that most people think. I mean, I think it was fairly recently, if you had a problem with anything, you would just go to the police and you would say, this person's done this person's done that, or this council's done this or whatever. You can't do that anymore. You have to go to the right body to complain about this stuff. I just think it's a bit ridiculous. I think that's where the democratic deficit is setting in.
Well, there's three problems here from what you were just saying. One is there's no appeals process with the contractors. They made that abundantly clear. There is no appeals process with the council, and they've made that quite clear. There is nothing if you go on RDC's website. I believe there is with some councils. But the third and the worst issue of all with that is the fact that you've got a private company earning 70% on every ticket they issue, and they are issuing you with something that is a criminal offence. And that's wrong. That's completely wrong. You could understand if it was, the actual council officers themselves and they're duly elected and they're responsible, and you would have some redress if they were being pedantic over issuing criminal tickets against people. But with this, when you've got a money-making machine that's actually issuing tickets, and it's in their interest to issue as many as possible, it's just like the wheel clamping cowboys all over again. You're held over a barrel. You've really had it. And luckily they've outlawed wheel clamping, and they need to tighten up on parking. But this is criminal, literally. And that's the point. It really is. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the meeting for today. On the back of, you've got some leaflets on the chairs, you'll see on the back of those there's a little form on the back if anybody wants to fill them in with any points they want to make or anything they think subjects we should bring up in the future. Oh, and there's also, thank you, Martin. There's also the leaflet on there for the tea party, which is coming up. Can someone tell me the date quickly? And the 30th of August. 30th of August, having a tea party, and that's to try and help raise funds for the Rother Forum. This is all done. There's no funding at all for this forum, so it's all paid for by members and by basically by members, and any money we raise through bits and pieces we do here. So, sorry, yeah. I've got this totally wrong. This is raising funds for breast cancer, not raising funds for the Rother Forum. We have got other events coming up, actually, which are raising funds for the Rother Forum. This one, actually, my fault, it was totally wrong. This is actually raising money for breast cancer. So if you can make it along to that one, that's on the 30th of August. And that was it. Thank you very much.